Hi, my name is Sam Del Rio, and today I want to talk to you about creating an application in the Speed of Light Media private data center. What we are solving for here is ease of access and setup. In the past, you would take collaboration with several different departments to get a test machine provisioned. This could take days or even weeks to complete. With Simplified Cloud Lab, once I have my application and my settings in place, I can spin up a copy for a single machine or multiple copies within minutes. Hello, and welcome to today's demo for creating an application in Simplified Cloud Lab for use in the Speederlight Media private data center. Before you can create an application, there are some items that should be in place first. One, firewall rules. You'll want to have your rules in place to provide or not provide access to the machines you're looking to create. And two, know the requirements needed for the machine or machines you're looking to create. Now that we know these important items, we can move to creating our application. The first thing we want to do is select the business unit under which we need to create the application. Once we have that selected, click on the Create a New App button under the Apps tab. Give your app a name and select your provider as SOLM Cloud Lab and click Create. This brings us to our application designer screen. Here we will set all our settings for this application. The first thing we need to do is set our network. So we're going to hit the network icon in the left-hand menu and click into the application designer, and this sets our network for us automatically. Clicking the network again and gives us to the edit property screen for the network, where I can adjust my CIDR as needed and set my domain, which is needed so that DNS can be handled in the background. Once I'm done setting my settings, click on the network again to exit the edit property screen. Next, I need to set my subnet. So now I'll hit the subnet icon in the menu and click into the network to create my subnet. I will click on the subnet again to enter the edit property screen for that subnet, where I can set the subnet name, set the subnet CIDR. I can decide to allow internet access for any machines in this subnet or not. And then I can, if I have a need, I can have the ability to override my default gateway and override the DHCP DNS servers. Once I have my settings, right, I simply click again on the subnet to get out of the edit property screen. Keep in mind, I can create multiple subnets on the network, making sure that I'm going in and updating the CIDR for each one as needed. Again, setting whether or not I need allow internet access and if I need to override the default gateway and DHCP DNS servers. Again, click on the subnet again to exit the edit property screen. Now these two subnets, as I have listed here, right, automatically will be able to communicate with each other. This is taken care of for you automatically as you create them. If I need to remove one, I simply click on that subnet I need to remove and click the delete button, and it will remove it from the designer. Once I have my subnets set up that I'm going to use, I'm now ready to create the machines. So I'm going to click on the machine icon in the menu on the left-hand side and click into the subnet I want that machine to reside in. You see here it automatically goes into the edit property screen for that machine. First, we're going to go ahead and give this machine a name. Important to understand, you cannot start it with a number. Starting with a number will cause save issues later on. The internal domain name and assigned public domain name are grayed out by default for the private data center. My key is again going to be using your business units or your company's default key for the system. So this is automatically set for you by default. Next, I'm going to select an image, right? What am I going to be creating this as, right? Is this going to be a Mac server? Is this going to be um, a Windows server or a workstation, right? Whatever images are provided for your company set up by Simplified Cloud Lab will be listed here. You also have the ability to import images if needed, which would then be listed under the Private Images tab, which can also be used to set up your machine. Once you've made your selection, next we have the type, right? And this is about setting how much CPU and RAM that we're going to allocate to this machine. Now this is important, right? This is again goes to knowing what is needed for the machines, right? What resources are needed, what the use is going to be of the machine. This helps us decide, right, how much resources we need to allocate to it. Keeping in mind, the more you allocate, the more cost is incurred. We do recommend starting out smaller if you can, and then if needed, increasing as needed. Next, we have the IP address, whether or not to automatically select IP address or statically assign the internal IP address for the machine. Again, this will be done based on the need of this machine and its usage. Next, you have the assign public IP address, right? If you need this to be externally accessible, you will want to assign a public IP address. This does come with an additional cost. You will want to inquire to simplify Cloud Lab support as to the exact cost for this. Next, we have mirror traffic. And this feature, mirror traffic, which again is currently only available in the Speed of Light Media private data center, allows you to send all of the network traffic exiting one NIC to another. So you can do some network monitoring and logging to it. This is also, you can do this with machines in the same copy, in the same subnet, or you can do it with another machine in a separate subnet. Next, we have volumes, right? And this is again needed if you're looking to add a D drive or an E drive. The machine image does come with obviously a C drive with the OS on it, with a typically 60 gig hard drive, which can be expanded if you need to expand the C drive. If you're looking to add an additional drive, you can do so by clicking on the Add Volume button, give it a name, right? The device ID must be set, right? And these IDs map to the volumes to the operating system's volume representation of the machine. On Linux, the drives are typically /dev/sd B through E. On Windows servers, it is XVDF through P, with XVDF correlating with D drive and XVDG correlating with E drive, and so on. Select your drive size, or if you have a pre-imported image for your D drive, you can select that as well. It would either be under the public or private images, again, depending on whether it was imported or we provided it for you. You can select the image for that secondary drive and it would boot up as such. Next, we have our desktop streaming technology, and we have two options here. This is Spice or VNC, and this is how you're going to connect to the machines using the Simplified Cloud Lab console. Next, we have our firewall rule sets. Right? Again, the firewall rule sets are about allowing access to the machine. Right? What type of external access are we selecting? Have we set up in our firewall rules for this machine? I hit the Add New Firewall Rule Set, select the appropriate rule set from the drop down, and hit the plus sign. Right? Now, it is important to note that you can add multiple rules, right? Rule sets to a machine as needed. right? And now this particular machine would get these rule sets as applied. Next, we have the new firewall rule. And adding a new firewall rule is about setting one-offs, right? So if I have a particular need to set a rule to allow access for this particular machine to say a particular IP, right? And I'm locking it down, right? I can hit my new firewall rule, right? Input my IP. The CIDR must be 32, right? If I leave that as 0 or anything other than 32, right, it will not save correctly. Set my ports as accordingly, right? Whatever is going to be needed. And then hit the update button, and it will add it to this machine, right? And only this machine. Again, this is done as one-offs and should be used very carefully. Next, we have basic users. Now, basic users is not utilized in the SpeederLight Media private data center. You would use the provided user for access to the machines. And last, we have connections. Now, connections is a feature that is available in the SpeederLight Media private data center, used with a feature called shared networks. Okay? And the shared networks is a feature that allows copies to communicate with each other, which is not done by default. So within a copy, machines can talk with each other, but separate copies, which are all copies are independent of each other, I can set up a network where they can actually talk with each other, right? And if it was available, it would show here and as under additional connections. Now, once I have all my settings set and I'm ready to hit save, I go back to my unit. I see my new application as it's created with all my settings. I am now ready to set this up as a copy, a running copy. Now, keeping in mind this is only your application, right, or your template you will eventually start up copies from. These settings can be changed at any time, and once saved, any new copies will automatically use the new settings. This concludes this demo for creating an application for use in the SpeederLight Media private data center.